Suddenly the sky is blue, and I've been thinking recently, I think I'm the one for you, and you're the one for me. Your heart is easy, and you look just like a rose, and there's something about you that only I can know. I think I'm the one for you, and baby you're the one for me. Just put a little faith in me, and I will give everything I have to make you happy. Your love, it can't be free. If I could die in your arms, it'd be ecstasy. I'm in love with you. I mean this so honestly, and it's only you. So hold me closely and speak softly. Suddenly the sky is blue, and I've been thinking recently, I think I'm the one for you, and you're the one for me. Your heart is easy, and you look just like a rose, and there's something about you that only I can know. I said suddenly the sky is blue, and I've been thinking recently, I know I'm the one for you, and you're the one for me. Your heart is easy, and you look just like a rose, and there's something about you that only I can know. I know I'm the one for you, and baby you're the one for me. I know I'm the one for you, and baby you're the one for me.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Ben from Universal Audio, and today is my absolute honor to debut with you guys the API Console Emulation for Luna. This is a powerful new extension for Luna that transforms Luna into a full-fledged API Vision console with preamps, channel strips, summing, bus compressors. It's the entire console package in the Luna. Guys, if you've been following along, if you've been hanging out with us for office hours, if you've been using Luna for the last year or so, this is kind of building on a lot of the groundwork that you guys have been seeing us do with tape extensions, with summing extensions, with the master tape, and this is just taking it up a whole nother level. The real cool part about how this all works, and as we're going to demonstrate in today's show and tomorrow's show, is that this Luna allows you to track through your channels using accelerated real-time monitoring, and then it will automatically switch to native processing to free up DSP to use UAD powering other parts of your session. That's If you guys have been UA fans or UA users for quite a while, you know how big of a deal this is. The fact that you can track through API Vision in real time on the channel strip, and then as soon as you're done recording, it offloads that onto your CPU and frees up the DSP to dedicate towards reverbs or other parts of your processing chain. So today we're going to focus on the mixing workflow using the API Console Emulation. But if you be sure, tomorrow we're going to be hanging out with Jakir King and the band Moon Taxi, and we're going to show you guys kind of the recording and overdubbing workflow using the API Console extension as well. So it's kind of hard to describe exactly how this all works or how it sounds and how it feels to really get hands on with it. So to help me out, I'm not going to do this alone. We brought today's guest, who's a Grammy-winning record producer, Carlos de la Garza. You guys may recognize his work. He's worked with bands such as Bad Religion, Paramore, Young the Giant, and Ziggy Marley, among many, many others. And the song that you guys just heard in the trailer for the API is a brand new song by Cold War Kids that Carlos mixed all inside of Luna using the API Vision console, and is actually available today as a downloadable Luna session. You guys can go in the app right now and download the full session file for this, see Carlos's mix, play around with the new API Vision extension, and we're going to hang out and chit-chat and kind of learn about Carlos's experience working through this. And so Carlos, man, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Yo, Ben, thanks for having me, man. Doing good, and excited to get into the world of Luna and the API Vision, man.
Dude, absolutely. Well, man, this was doing projects like this. These are the things I have the most fun getting to do here at UA, which is getting to, obviously making a trailer is fun, but I really care about the music. I love getting to work with amazing bands and amazing producers creating music for these trailers. And you just so happen to be working on it with the Cold War Kids at the moment. You guys are working, I think, towards a new record, and we approached you about working on this project, and you guys were all game. Which, man, thank you so much for your contribution there, and also being a bit of a guinea pig here for us. So,
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was fun. Everything just happened the stars just happened to align. Like, yeah, I got the call from Erica, you guys, and mentioning you wanted maybe a song. I was literally in the studio rapping a song with the band that I was producing and writing with them, and had kind of started rough mixing, but hadn't taken it all the way. And it was just like a perfect opportunity to dive headfirst into Luna and use this amazing new API Vision console and seeing what it can do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and so, folks, you guys are probably you got a little sense there, a little taste of it in the trailer. But, essentially what this is it's now your entire session has a dedicated spot for API processing. And, Carlos, were you already familiar with using the Vision channel strip with UAD?
I mean, no, not specifically. I mean, truth be told, I'm a Pro Tools user. I come from Pro Tools world. So yeah, learning it was a challenge, and diving into it and trying to navigate and learn a workflow that was something akin to what I'd been used to was a challenge, but it was really not that hard. Like, as you guys quickly mentored me through it, most of the commands were similar, and the one thing that I wasn't immediately clear, but once I did realize it was like a game changer, was that the Vision and all the associated channel strip functionality it doesn't function as a plugin. It's its own thing. I was thinking it, I guess a good way to think of it is that instead of like the generic DAW mixer that the gray with all the faders that comes in every DAW, you could think of it as being a Vision console instead, and just having the direct access to some of the functionality of it was just so much faster and easier, and just freed up so much more DSP to allow me to get into other things. It was just like, yeah, it was really fun. It was a really fun, challenging, and ultimately really rewarding exercise for sure.
That's awesome. Well, so far, people got to hear the results in the trailer, but they only got a little slice of it. So I think maybe a fun way to kick this off before we really get in there and start geeking out, kind of about all the different facets of the API Vision Console Emulation. We should probably hear the song and show people the session here.
Cool.
So I've got it all pulled up here on my computer, and I'll play back for you guys here in a second. But quickly, you guys are going to instantly notice what's different. There's this whole new console section on every single channel, and what this does is it puts the API Vision on any channel that you want. And all of these, if you put a track into record mode, it automatically pulls them into DSP and allows you to track through it in real time. And then as soon as you're done recording, unrecord enable, and now you're processing it all natively. So what's great is this is if you're familiar at all with the Vision channel strip, this is you're gonna feel right at home here. And I got to say, after testing this for quite a while, and man, even if you don't use dynamics and EQ on every single track, just for me alone, having high pass and low pass filters available on every track, totally. And then you can come over here and quickly switch in a compressor if you just need a little or a lot of compression. And then of course you've got the EQ where you can pull up the 550, or you can also switch it over and have the 560 available on every single channel. It's so powerful. It is such a cool feature to have, and I think anyone that's been mixing with the API Vision channel strip, you guys are going to really love and enjoy having this now available on every single track inside of your session, all running natively. So with that, let's hear the song. I'll play the song down. I'll kind of scroll around the session, give you guys a little bit of an overview. Again, if you guys are following along at home, you guys can download the session. Just click on the UA diamond up top, go to the Discover page, and you'll see it right over here on the right-hand side in the Luna sessions. You can barely see it on my screen because our faces are covering it up. Trust me, it's there. There's a download button. You can download the session. It'll come, as we do with all of our Luna sessions. There's a full version, which is what I'll be showing you guys today. And then there's a quad optimized one. So if you guys have got a twin or a smaller, DSP setup, you can also load up the session that fits all, should play back on your system. I think all we did on that one is committed some of the reverbs to audio, so that way you guys can still get the full experience. But yeah, with all that jibber jabber, let's take a listen real quick, and then we'll dive in deeper.
Star, never the extra. Boy, when you need a break.
Congratulations, Carlos. That is a sick mix.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, that was
Dude,
a fun one.
that-
Love
that-
these guys.
It's so fun. Oh yeah, dude! Shout out to the Cold War kids for
Yes.
being down to play game on
Indeed.
this. It's a
Yes.
what a dance! Like I didn't did they this dancey pop thing? It's I know they kind of blend genres a lot like this, don't they?
They do, and I think the cues that we were taking from this are everything from David Bowie, Berlin era to like Talking Heads and In Excess, but obviously at its core, what they do, which is a alternative rock band that has an amazing and character-filled voice that can do a lot of different things. And yeah, they're just they're so rad. They're so fun to work with. They're game for anything, and we've been writing for the last few months here or so. And it's just been a really fun experience getting in deep with them and creating something cool like this. Especially the time having to work out with taking this mix to the finish line in time for this launch of the API Vision. It's just, I couldn't have worked out better.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, so there are so many different aspects of this I want to jump into, but I think probably a good place to start is let's start from the end of the chain and work our way back, right? So,
Cool.
Starting from the mix bus, from the main fader. As you guys were I was kind of scrolling around trying to give you guys an overall kind of an overview of the session, so you could see how many tracks we're dealing with. And I see a lot of questions kind of asking about overall the size of the session, the size of the DSPs. And that, again, this is one of the coolest features about what we're releasing today is that all of the API stuff inside this session, the 2500, the vision channel strip on each channel, the summing, that's all running natively. So those are all using 0 DSP in this mix scenario. So this, all the DSP now is reserved for the other UAD effects. You guys can see there's some distressor, some RMX 16, there's some capital chambers, there's a good smorgasbord of plugins. Which hint, this is why everybody got a demo reset today. So every UAD user, every Luna user, you guys all just got all of your demos have been reset. So you guys have fresh 14-day demos to try out any and all of the plugins that are included inside the session and just in the overall UAD universe. So this way we wanted you guys to be able to download the session, open it up, try everything out, and not be held back by not potentially already using up your demo or not owning any of these plugins. So on the mix bus, I mean, this really, as you guys saw, there's some subgroups, but a lot of stuff, Carlos, you're kind of just sending into the main fader. And so in the signal path for that, it starts off with API summing. So this is a component it's been in Luna now for a little while, but this does. It's hard to describe, isn't it?
Yeah, it was pleasantly not subtle. Like I wasn't, I wasn't sure what to expect. Again, like not having used it before, and a little dab will do ya. Like I loved the sound of that thing, and I even preferred to. I tried the Neve one as well, and I preferred this one to that one.
So, what is it? How do you like? If you're trying to explain to someone like the character, like what is it doing to the sound to your ears?
It just sounds like to me this song and what I was able to accomplish within this thing. It just feels like everything's running a little hot in a good way. I'm a big fan of distortion in general. I put it on a lot of different things, and I like it. To me, it kind of makes everything sound like it's just about to like kind of explode.
It's like right on the edge. It puts it like right on the edge, doesn't it?
It's like the smell of a burnt capacitor and in the console or something. I like things to sound like they're right on the edge. Probably actually are distorting a little bit, but I like it, So to me, it doesn't go quite that far. It just adds like. I hate to sound repetitive or cheesy or whatever, but like it has a punch to it that is like, like a definite punch that is palpable. It's not subtle if you don't want it to be.
Totally. And so obviously, if you've been following along at home, but for anyone that's new here, you'll notice it's the controls for it are very simple. You got headroom and trim. So the headroom knob, what this allows you to do is it allows you to really control that saturation. If you pull it, by default, these are both just straight up and down right at midnight. and then you can pull the headroom to the left, and it starts cleaning it up. This allows more headroom on the summing bus. So if you ever feel like you're getting too crunchy, you can easily kind of lessen the effect a little bit, but without changing. Thank you. If you're crazy and you want less of that sound, no, I'm just if it's ever too much and you don't want to have to go back and rework your entire gain stage into your summing, you can just pull the headroom knob down, and that kind of opens up and gives it a little bit more room to breathe. And vice versa, you can kind of push it harder and harder by moving the headroom to the right. So Carlos, you left it here, and you guys will see. You probably saw it during the playback, but I'll do some focused on-offs here for you guys to really listen. You can see the view on the effect on the VU meter. You're pushing into it, right? Like that VU, it's hanging out in the red. It's constantly like, oh yeah, we're going for it, which is where the trim control comes in. So it allows you to kind of manage your gain stage into the API 2500, which is the bus compressor on the track.
Yes.
And so, 2500, a lot of you are probably already familiar with it. The UAD version of the 2500 has existed for some years now. This has now been ported over and included in this in the native version of it, included with the console emulation bundle. So this is the big thing that I think a lot of people are starting to pick up on, is like, this is actually basically 4 products all bundled together to unlock all of the power of the API Vision console emulation. And the coolest thing, and this is maybe a headline that got buried in some of the stuff, is that when you buy the Luna version of these, you also are getting the UAD version of the 2500. You're also getting the UAD version of the Vision console channel strip, the API preamp. So all these components, you're getting both the native version you use inside of Luna and also the UAD version for working inside a console or other DAWs. So it's not like you're locked 100% into Luna. The API summing, that is Luna exclusive. That's there's no way to bring that out into other DAWs, but the other components of the bundle are all both Luna and other DAWs as well. So the 2500, famous bus compressor, and this you're being very reasonable, I'd say, Carlos. You're not going nuts with it, but is that typically how you approach mixed bus compression?
I don't use the 2500 super often, to be honest, on the bus, but I was curious to try it, and I liked it. I scrolled through. I think Adam Hawkins, who's a friend, and I love his mixing. I think I started from one of his presets and I tweaked from there.
Yeah, I saw that. It's preserved here in the session, though. Adam Hawkins mix bus.
Yeah,
and then you just tweak it a little bit from there, because it's like what, a 3-to-1 ratio, 10 millisecond attack, fast release, about halfway on the mix knob. Like,
yeah, I turned the mix this way down. Yeah, it's not going crazy. It's not doing a ton, I don't think. But yeah, I love the sound of it. I mean, part of me was like, well, we're going for the API thing. I wanted to go all in and see how it turned out, and I was, obviously happy with the results. So
yeah,
it stayed.
Nice. Well, and the cool thing, is you guys are, as I scroll down the channel strips here, you guys are going to notice, so all these console extensions now have their own row inside the Luna mixer. And the huge advantage of this is that all these controls are you can kind of just get at them and control them really fast. But there's also controls that are, there's additional controls like the 2500. Like you may be asking, where's the makeup gain, or where's the variable release knob? You can actually open it up, and it opens up over here on the left-hand side in the focus browser. And then here's where you have access to all the other functions inside of both the channel strip and also the mix bus compressor. And of course, this is not limited just to your mix bus, guys. This is any bus inside of Luna. You can throw the 2500 on, and I can admit right now I have been overdosing on 2500 on every single bus. Like, now having this luxury of like not using up my DSP. It's like, yeah, dude, throwing the guitars like through a little 2500, or having on basically every single bus in my mixes. A little dab will do, and like kind of bring the mix. Having that mix control, I feel like I'm never over compressing things, but I'm at least kind of adding a little bit of that sound and control to every bus. And
I'm so down with that flow. I do that often. Like I get into something and I'll try it, and I'll throw it on everything. The mix knob is so essential, and just yeah, again, it's almost like a safety thing so that you're not ruining something, but you're
Hmm.
giving it just a little kiss of whatever it is that it needs, you know?
Yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
big
Uh,
fan.
and so what's cool is like you guys are noticing down here in the insert section for all my channels that there's now, there's these kind of special looking icons for Vision and for the 2500. What's really cool, so even though they have a dedicated spot in the mixer view, there you can tell exactly where you want this processing to be in your signal chain. So on your mix bus here, Carlos, you've got the Bax EQ before the 2500, and then going into the Brainworks and the Vertigo and finally the Oxford limiter. But it's really super handy to have this functionality, right? Of being able to say, oh, want to do a little EQ move and then compress and then continue on with the mix bus duties.
Hmm. Yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
and you can just drag and you can drag these around to rearrange them, and so you can play with that signal flow in that order. Which you can do this in the real world too, but that'd be a lot of patching, unpatching, and not able to make it a real quick, seamless change in your signal flow. So yeah, let's. I pulled it up. I parked the playhead here on the chorus. So what I want to do for you guys is I'm going to do some kind of just before and after. So I'll just be switching these in and out. These are not perfectly gain matched, guys. They're pretty close, but you're going to notice a little bit of level difference. Main thing though, listen to the character of the sound, guys. Like this is, I know louder is better, and actually I think the befores may because of the trim setting may come off a tiny bit louder, but listen to that, the character of the sound and the edge, especially the tone that the summing is able to give to the mix. So I'll do them one after the other, and of course if you want like a real nice seamless on and off on uaudio.com, if you guys go to the bundle page and scroll down, there's a sound examples video, and we did some very precise on-offs that are perfectly gain matched, so you can really hear this difference. But of course, this is live. I want to be able to show this off for you guys now as well. So let's take a listen to the chorus, and I'll bring these in and out.
I'm scandalized. I'm scandalized. I don't know what I want anymore. Turn out the lights. Turn out the lights. I try over and over. I can't let it go. Fear is sacred, love is lust. We've been hypnotized. Is there anyone to trust? Got me scandalized. Fear is sacred, love is lust. We've been hypnotized. Every single one of us got me scandalized. Back to the wall, I will go down swinging. I never thought I could lose my kingdom. Boy, you need to stop thinking you're God. I promise that you are not. My drug of choice, my superpower.
Dude, do you hear that on the especially the bus compressor, right? You hear the like
Oh, for sure.
the punch and the attack that you're able to get. It's still subtle. Like if you guys aren't listening, if you're listening on your phones or on laptops, you might be missing the kind of some of these detail moments. But dude, the guitar and the snare drum and the voice, like all of those, it's not just a glue thing. It is like it's very much a bit of an edge to all those sounds.
Hmm. Yeah, the 2500 to me in the past, I think what it's probably most known for is its use as a drum parallel or bus compressor.
Hmm.
And I used to have the hardware back in the day, and I remember A/Bing it against like an SSL or a C2, and they sounded kind of similar. I think I'm falling in love again with the 2500 on the bus.
Recency bias, maybe, but no, it sounds so good, right? Like
Yeah, it's great. It's awesome.
It is.
It has like a definitive punch that is like unmistakable, and that adds a certain thing that I'm really into. So
Mhm.
I'm feeling it right now.
Absolutely, and it's cool too because this is kind of the theme for me about API stuff is that it's the perfect amount of control where I want it, and then also some having stepped attack and stepped releases and like having those not be fully variable. They're incredibly musical settings. So like, for me, I'm in the same boat. Like 10 and 30, these are my two attack settings that I go between all the time, because they let so much transient through, and they still they're still kind of fast enough to pick up on stuff and make it slam a little bit.
Right.
And then as you mentioned, the mix knob is it's so crucial. Being able to like kind of hit this on the harder side, and then just come down here, and you've got an instant kind of parallel path happening to the sound. It just makes all the difference in the world. And if any of you guys at home aren't familiar with the 2500, do not sleep on this section down here. There's a reason why these two switches were elevated to the front, because the knee and the thrust circuit for the 2500 make all the difference. And it's essentially, as you guys know, like the compressor knee is how it transfers, how from where the threshold is to how it starts compressing. That really changes the response overall and the feel of the compressor. But the thrust circuit, this is kind of tilting the side chain a lot, and it's really allowing the compressor to listen to a little bit less bass or a little bit more bass as it is. And so when you're just kind of mixing with it, I don't know about you, Carlos, but I kind of like toggle through all these, and then
same
and like find
same.
Right, which one's feeling good today.
Yeah, and that's always the key in A/B testing is like, I mean, with something like a bus compressor, maybe it doesn't apply, but trying to take out the volume aspect of it. But in this case, it is maybe the volume aspect. If whatever feels like it's making what you want to punch through a little better or a little clearer, might be the thing, And it's one of those things where you just have to use the ear test on any given day. Either one of those can do the trick,
Yeah, absolutely. So then zooming back out here, with the summing, as you guys saw, the way it kind of toggling that in and out, it's an edge thing, right? It's a subtle little hint of extra push. You said obviously you compared it a little bit to the Neve one, but how would you coach someone through kind of approaching using summing on a session like this?
I mean, I kind of similar to what we were just talking about, like taking it in and out and seeing what sounds good. I mean, when I was A/Bing it against the Neve one, I really quickly just A/B'd what it sounded like. This had a little more clarity, a little more punch to it. The Neve seemed just a little lacking in that regard. And for this song, for this mix, I like the API. But yeah, I mean, again, this is coming from a devoted fan of everything Neve. So yeah, on any given day, that the Neve could probably win too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's not subtle. It's fun. As I mentioned earlier, and I told you, I think earlier, I use a lot of distortion in mixing, and it's subtle amounts. I feel like a little bit spread across a lot of things kind of adds up to be a cool thing. Same with compression. Like I usually don't do. I'm not super heavy-handed with compression in general, but I do a little bit on a lot of different things, and I think at the end stage, with again swinging back around to the summing aspect, just having it feel like it's pushing a little bit, but not. Obviously, you don't want it to destroy your mix because it can get pretty crazy pretty fast if you crank it,
Right.
Unless that's what you're going for. But I think it just add to taste kind of thing is how I approached it.
Well, and that's a huge thing with distortion, and I mean, with all these analog processes, right? Is like it can be really tempting sometimes, like to overdo it and just like kind of go nuts, and then like you listen back to your mix the next day, and you're like,
yeah,
I might have been a little heavy-handed yesterday. Let me work my way back here a little bit.
Totally.
But it's something you end up learning over time, though. It's because I mean, this is mixing is the art of balance, right? It is balancing elements of the mix of your track, of your production, to feel good together and feel good through the processing. So like when you approach this mix, I'm curious, like, do you start by kind of diving in, going track by track, and then work on the mix bus, or like do you start the mix bus and work your way back? What's your typical workflow like that?
It's funny because I as much as I enjoy watching podcasts and tutorials on audio, and I still watch them just because I'm curious as to what other people are doing. Because I mean, I'm kind of largely self-taught. I mean, I had a couple guys who I learned from in my early days that I would just kind of like uh, kind of look over their shoulder and ask what they're doing. But by and
Mm-hmm.
large, I kind of just like fucked with stuff until it got to where it sounded like I liked it.
Uh-huh.
My approach is probably not. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend for everyone, but my approach is like I kind of do a lot of soloing. I always start with the drums. I try to make the drums sound good, then I build everything on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I kind of build it up kind of like we track it. So drums, then bass, then guitars, then vocals.
Okay.
And yeah, I know that some people might think that that's a wrong way to work or a backwards way to work, but it's worked for me. And I maybe it's because I'm a drummer first, and in my mind, yeah, I'm just hearing the drums and the music, coming from a band world, and like hearing everything come together when we're in a rehearsal room or playing a show. It just feels the most right to me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, always with drummer's perspective on everything panning.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's where it's come from. It starts there. That's where it started from with me personally in music, and that's where the mix always starts from.
Yeah. So start.
And
Well, go ahead.
and literally, like, I'm soloing the kick drums, and then I'm soloing snare drums. Then I'm making sure that those balances are good, and then I'm building on top of that after that. So that's my general workflow.
Nice. That amazing segue to come over here and talk about the drum mix. So obviously this is where kind of having a channel strip available on each one of the drum tracks. For me so far, this is where I use it all the time, nonstop. Right? It's like being able to get in there, EQ, compress, gate, or expand.
The filtering is so rad. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed having just a quick access to all the filters. I mean, like,
Yeah.
most of the time I'm EQing, it's probably half and half. Sometimes I'm getting detailed in there with an EQ or whatever, but like a lot of times it is just a simple high pass or low pass, and just having something there, the efficiency is just like increased exponentially for me. Just having that, and even the trim, I did it on a couple of things. I used the trim here and there, but yeah, and then and the compressor, same thing. I wasn't familiar with this compressor, but I found myself going to it more often than I thought I would. I would just pop it in, again, seeing what it was doing, tweaking as needed, and for something subtle, it worked great. And I just wanted, again, I love the challenge of like diving into something new, seeing what it can do, and having it, ultimately, if it sounds good, and it passes the smell test, then it's a go for me. So
Yeah.
it was just a really fun challenge, and something that I was really pleased with the results of.
Nice. And then also I noticed that, you're not shy with the EQ moves on the drums either. Like this is
No.
it's a thing I've picked up from so many amazing producers and engineers, having talked to them, is like who cares, +4, -6, who cares? Like the numbers don't actually matter. What matters is like, are you getting the sound that you want?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like,
That's something I learned early on too. Like, I mean, I remember, I think I was tracking with Joe Ciccarelli at Sunset, and he is not light-handed with the EQ, and I totally back it. Like, do whatever you need to do to make it sound good. Is the approach I try to take. And I mean, it's worth noting that like the EQ that you're seeing on that kick drum, for example, like when I was tracking it, I was adding just as much, if not more. So yeah, do whatever it takes to take it to the finish line, I say.
even if it includes +12 at 200 on your room mic.
Even if it includes +12 at 200 on your room.
Well, let me play what just these drums sound like, and again, I'll do a quick little on-off for you guys, so you guys can hear what this is doing. Yet again, there's a sound examples video available for you guys if you want to check these out in a little bit more focused setting. But dude, these drums they really slap in such a good way. So here's just the drums on their own. without. I can guarantee you guys heard that on your little tiny phone speakers. Guarantee you everyone could hear that difference. So you tracked, were these drums tracked at your studio, or did you guys go somewhere to track them?
No, we've been doing the whole thing here. We're pretty self-contained in our little bubble here. And yeah, everything from top to bottom was tracked here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you remember, for people, obviously when you pull up the session, you guys are going to notice you imported the session, you guys were working in Pro Tools and creating this record, and then you've imported everything into Luna to mix it. Do you remember kind of, obviously you've got some close mics here. I'm really curious about your kit and your talkback mic setup. How do you track those, and what's kind of your goal with those tracks?
I see a lot of people doing this. I think the first person I saw doing this was Joe Ciccarelli, and then I used it on I think on the Wolf Alice record that I did with JMJ, where we have just like some people use a 57, some people use a what have you. I used a AEA 44CX, which is like their 44 style ribbon, and just above the kick. Some people put it on the other side, like more on the snare side, like below the crash cymbal. But yeah, mine's like kind of above my kick, pointed at the snare, and I just crush it. I think I use an overstayer saturator, which is one of my go-to outboard distortion boxes, and then this talkback is just a 57. I mean, I love the sound of that mic, just the talkback mic. I always try to record it, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And this one in my room, it's been working a lot lately. And that's just I think it's a modified 57. It's like has some of the transformers in it.
Yeah, the different transformers. Those ones sound. It's cool because like they sound like 57, but they're just that a little bit more open, a little bit beefier, right?
Yeah, I love those. Those are my go-to whenever a 57 is needed. And yeah, for the talkback mic, I think it's same thing. I'm either going through a saturator or I'm just compressing it with like, what do I have here? It's either an LA2A or LA3A going to the box, and then crushed, I think, in the box additionally. Yeah.
So yeah, you guys can see when you guys pull up in the session on your own systems, you'll see they came in hot. But like again, we're talking, dude. There's no rules when it comes to this stuff, especially for these, because what they end up doing is they add so much of the tone and character to the drums that I'll play it for you guys again. If I mute those two tracks, I'm sorry, but it kind of falls apart. Like you miss all the energy and the excitement. And you guys may also notice there's one track that's oddly not here. You don't have an overhead track really. You've got a single crash mic, but you're not doing like a stereo pair or some sort of overhead arrangement. What's that's odd. What's your thinking there, Carlos?
Usually I do. I think for this track we either overdubbed the cymbals, or I can't remember now, or
you're right. Like, that crash track is just literally the crash for the beginning of the song.
I think that's just, or it's just a sample, straight up just a sample that hits on the downbeats of the big changes. And yeah, I think it was a thing where this song, we were writing these songs from the ground up, and they start as like, we have our friend Gavin and come in and he'll play like a beat, and we'll just like loop it and use that as the foundation for any given section that we're writing on. And I think it was a situation where maybe one of the loops just kind of stuck. We liked the vibe of it, and we kept going, and we kind of start falling in love with the thing, even though it may be imperfect or whatever. Like, we just want to keep the vibe intact as much as possible. Yeah. And I think that's what happened here with this one.
That's awesome. So yeah, let me essentially the kit and the talkback, these are essentially kind of the overhead / rooms. They're kind of adding all that character to the sound. So let me I'll play back that same spot again and just show you guys what happens when you don't have these kind of added to the sauce.
Not cool.
No. But it's cool because you've got them panned a little bit, so like they are kind of adding some stereo width. They're taking the drums out of just the center channel as well.
I think what I was doing is, because you do get a lot of bleed when you put distortion and compression on anything, you get so much cymbals, right? So I think I was
Mm-hmm.
kind of using them as a faux overhead pair, like kind of spacing them slightly. Um, and yeah, that was how I was getting some of the overheads in there. It's worth noting that I don't track drums with hardly any compression, and I don't think I use a ton of compression even when mixing. I
Mm-hmm.
much prefer distortion, and that goes for pretty much everything except for vocals. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'm always adding a little distortion or gain on a source as opposed to compressing it. Although I do that occasionally, but it's not my
Mm-hmm.
go-to.
Yeah, and you can see like all your compressors, like they're doing a little bit of work, like, but they're not.
Hmm.
You're not cranking on any of these compressors really that hard. And
Hmm.
yeah, people would be shocked. Like drums don't need it. They don't often need a lot of compress. Like sometimes you'd be working
Yeah,
against yourself, right? If you're trying
totally.
to compress stuff over and over again. And I love that you're mentioning that like saturation, distortion, like those are those add harmonics, they add energy, they add a lot more to the tone and to the life of a drum track.
And I guess technically it is compressing it. It's clipping it, right? It's clipping the
Mm-hmm.
signal. So in a
Yep.
sense, it is a compressor of sorts, but it's just doing it in a very destructive way that I like the sound of.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, so the drums to me, yeah, it was really all about the kind of the filter, the EQ. Obviously you've got a little bit of a gate expand. I think these are set to the gate on the kick and snare, kind of your close mics. Um, do you find yourself using gates when you're mixing drums all the time, or is this just a per needed basis?
I do mainly for kick and snare. And it depends if I'm adding a sample or not too. Sometimes, if I'm adding a sample, I tend not to. But if I'm not adding a sample or the sample is like really a low blend, I'll
Mm-hmm.
rely on the gates more to give me more of the punch and get less of the mumbo jumbo of the kit in there.
Yep.
And some people don't, some people don't like the sound of gates, or I will actually go in and manually, uh, what do you call it? Tab to transient and kind of like isolate especially with toms. I do that.
Mm-hmm.
Strip silence, I guess. The toms. I don't
Yep.
do that with kick or snare. Uh,
Gotcha.
but yeah, that's my go-to. And yeah, gates is the same thing. Like it's a really touchy thing. If you too much of it, you lose some of the attack, some of the transient attack if you're a little too heavy-handed with it. But a little bit goes a long way, I think, with that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can see in here you've gone through and kind of strip silenced
Hmm.
the toms so that way the mics are only open when you need them, which again allows it helps give it such a more focused sound when you get to a tom moment, right? Like this way, the tom mics you get to add all the body and all the real detail to those toms. Well, you've got the vibe of them here in the kit and the talkback mic, like those. You're getting the full picture of the kit. You're getting the energy
Right.
of the performance through those two. And then when you get, especially, I'm sure you guys noticed on the bridge when he hits that floor tom, it's just like boom, it's this huge sound, which is no doubt aided by the fact that you have a dedicated bridge tom verb track. This
Yes.
pulled up
Yes.
the AMS RMX
Oh
16.
man, I love that plugin. It's so great. I mean, I probably will buy the hardware. I don't know why. If maybe it's just like a personal affection for it, but I
Hmm.
think that thing is so sick. It's like maybe it's just the sound of my youth that I identify with or something, But like especially the non-lin settings in there that I just go to a lot. I love that thing.
Yeah. Let me play that bridge moment so people can really get a good impression of what these tom tracks are doing, and most importantly, what this tom verb is doing for the track. Guys, I'm a silly goose. I did not have the bus solo. One more time now with what I said I was gonna say, what we were gonna hear. A little vocal in there too.
Mhm. Yeah, I doubled up on that. I think for the vocal, I was feeling it needed that thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I just sent it to the drum one just because like
You already got it roll. You
that
already
was
got it
that
rocking,
was a
right?
sound. Let's do exactly. And that's probably what they did back in the day. So
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have multiple AMSs sitting around any studio.
No,
Um,
exactly. Well, and that's funny you bring that up because that was the thing. We'd had an office hours episode yesterday where we were, we spent the whole episode talking about, using a classic studio workflow mindset, right? Of like
right.
using the API vision on your entire mix because, when you're working in a studio, that would be the board that you're on, right? You'd have
Hmm.
an entire console in front of you loaded up with EQs, all the tools that you kind of need at the ready, but you'd also be able to patch in inserts or patch in sends, out to the outboard. In this mix, like you really followed that sort of mindset, that sort of workflow, right? Where you're doing
Yeah, I did.
majority of your work here in the console, but then say something like the vocal, for instance, you've patched in a few other things to kind of complement and kind of continue to build the sound with different tools.
Yeah, for me too. Like again, having this be my first experience with Luna, having the familiarity of the API stuff there really helped bridge the gap for me. Like it's something I could lean on, having worked on API consoles many times in the past, and I know intimately what a 550A or 550B or a 560 does.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it helped just like one more thing that helped bridge that gap between a newbie and someone who has to get a mix sounding pumping in a short amount of time.
on a nice crazy deadline, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so again, yeah, guys, you'll see down here in the insert section, the API vision's represented in the inserts, so you can customize where this lands in your signal flow. But yeah, it was awesome to see, when we hung out last week, kind of getting ready for the show. You mentioned just how important this LA2A is to your vocals and your bass sound. What's
Yes.
you said you're very particular. You love the gray one specifically,
Yes.
right? What is
Yeah.
it about the gray one that gets you?
I don't know. I know it's a different transformer in the gray face versus the silver face
Mm-hmm.
LE2As, right?
Yep.
It's not the HJ100, it's the something Norman now. But something about, again, and you and I talked about this a little earlier today, like certain plugins that when you initiate them and just their default setting, it sounds good. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously the LA2A being just a two knob treat, like it's so easy. It's such a timeless classic, and I think partially for that reason, it's hard to make something sound bad going through that compressor.
Yeah.
And yeah, so for bass and vocals especially, like I don't know what is going on, what kind of magic is going on in that thing, but it just makes everything sound good that you run through it, even in the default mode. And I know it's
Uh-huh.
gain. I know that obviously there's gain going on there, but it's something beyond that. So yeah, I just love the sound of that thing. Like
Yeah.
grab and go.
Grab and go. And then it looks like you may have a bit of an addiction to the culture vulture, sir.
Hmm.
This is what this is one of those boxes that it goes for. You can have it subtle, but you can also blast it. What's uh
Yeah,
again?
and
How
this
do
is
you
one
how do
where
you approach it?
I would say I prefer the plugin of this. The mix knob just gives it
Yeah.
that extra degree of functionality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've tried a bunch of different settings. I have some of my presets. I don't think it's in here in Luna, but in the other DAW,
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a few things dialed in there. But I just love the sound of that thing. I don't particularly like some of the bias things too much, and the
Yep.
filtering really, the filter switch on the left hand side, the bottom left,
Yep.
that really has a big impact on the sound. And on any given day, on any given thing, any of those three sounds great. Um,
Yeah.
and of course, yeah, the mix knob essential.
So essential, right? And like
Yes.
this is one. It's another one of those ones where like uh it's a fun one to play with. It's a fun one to like get in there and like audition. Like, cool. How does it sound on P1, P2? Kind of switch between them, mess with the drive and the bias, and like each one of these, the drive is obviously pushing more signal into the tubes. The bias is starting to starve them of voltage, and kind of you can get like these like spitty, kind of broken up weird kind of crazy sounds, right?
Mhm.
And then you're totally right. Like having the filter. Then sometimes if you guys are using this and it ever gets too edgy, that's where the filter, just be able to round it out at like that 9K or 6K. It can go. You can get like this real powerful mid range and presence without kind of getting in the way of like your cymbals or your other like high frequency elements.
Mhm.
And then end of the day, if you're overdoing it, if you're overcooking it, you can always just, but you kind of like it like that. To me, that's kind of how I always approach so many of these tools now that they have the ability to blend it in. Is like, man, I kind of like cooking it too hard. I kind of like this, but like I think I'm gonna regret it tomorrow. You know what? That
Right.
mix
Yeah.
knob. Here we go. Like let me bring it back. There we go. Now I feel like a good steward of sound with a touch less of it. But yeah, this is such a cool plugin. It's so cool to see like how you kind of use it, and multiple instances you're able to bring it over here, and for a lot of the folks at home who are just now learning about how this whole Vision console extension now works, is all the API in the session is no longer using DSP. This is all running on the CPU, which is freeing up more room to do stuff like Culture Vultures, or you've got the AKG BX20 on stuff, the Capital Chamber, some heavy duty, really high impact reverbs, and the LA2A. You're now able to allocate your DSP resources for using those, while you still have a amazing sounding channel strip available on every single channel.
That's insane, dude. That is just insane. I'm sorry.
Talk about like that's some 2021
Yeah.
shit right there, isn't it?
Yeah, dude. I mean, like, you have an API console essentially in front of you,
Right?
whatever it is. I mean, I don't know. It's awesome. It's awesome.
It is so fun. And again, guys, I can't stress this enough. Like the session that we're actually walking through right now, you guys can download this at home, audition it for yourself, pull it up, get in there, go track by track. But you can also, you guys can save a version of the song, come up here, save new version, save my changes, and Ben messes up Carlos's mix. I can save a version and I can start messing up Carlos's mix and do my own thing. But it's a really fun way to learn this workflow and learn kind of the process of now throwing the same channel strip across all the tracks, soloing stuff up, building up a mix in the way that you like to work it. So you can get in here, you can change the routing around, you can guys really engage with this stuff and use it as a chance to learn what's available to you now inside of Luna. And I know I saw a few comments in here. People are curious about with API Vision. There was an update to the Vision channel strip overall, and Carl said, obviously you got a nice little preview of what's going on here. Of so the API Vision, even the UAD version of it, which I'll just pull up for you guys. You're gonna notice there's a slight difference, slightly new Vision. Let me pull up the legacy one as well. Boom. Here we go. So this is the one that we've been using here for a few years. Very familiar. And then this is the brand new Vision channel strip. So you guys are gonna notice subtle differences, right? Like they look like cousins. They look like they related. You've now got a fader. The biggest difference over here in the EQ, there's now a type control. So you can switch between the 550 and the 560. And so this, the Luna version of the API Vision channel strip is based on the new updated Vision channel strip for UAD. Obviously, if it's going to automatically swap in and out when you're record enable, we wanted to make sure they sound exactly the same and operate the same. So you can change EQs. You'll notice there's there's a high pass filter in the preamp section of the 212. But otherwise, sonically, these two are very, very similar. There's just some tweaks to the output stage with adding the fader in here. But yeah, this is so. I saw some people they were wondering why all of a sudden their Vision, the Vision that they've come to know and love now says it's legacy. It's still still works great, but now there's just some new options and availability with the updated version of it. that's
Nice.
available for UAD. So you can put that in your unison slot. And that's what we're going to be kind of focusing on with Jakir tomorrow. So we won't spend too much time on today. Is kind of the tracking workflow using all these same tools. It opens up a whole nother way of working with Luna and recording in real time and getting the sound of API from the get go, while also having the control over it as you're mixing through it. And yeah, so. Let's see. We talked about the mix bus. We talked about the drums. I'm a bass. You're a drummer. I'm a bass player. I gotta ask you. All right. I gotta ask you about this. I gotta ask you about your bass processing. It sounds like it was recorded in. Was this direct or was it through an amp? Do you remember?
Yeah. I think. The bass was definitely DI, and a lot of the guitars were DI, if not all of them. Actually.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I've been getting into lately. I'm really a fan of pedals, like if a bunch of pedals on the ground in the background. So yeah, we do pedals, but especially for this kind of cleaner kind of driven thing. And I'm a big fan of preamp pedals and that kind of thing, and obviously a great DI. But mostly, if not all, DI, guitar and bass.
Interesting. Well, that's cool. I did a video a year or so ago with Corey Wong. Same mind opening. Wait a second, you always goes direct. And he was using the API 2500 as part of his DI sound. He loved slamming into that compressor specifically. And it was dude. Yeah, I guess for whatever reason. I always thought guitars had to go through an amp, and it never dawned on me dude, these things sound kind of rad, especially for this is kind of unabashed some 80s sort of dancey poppy sort of stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's the sound of those records is DI guitars, DI bass.
For sure. I think a lot of them for sure, but Black Dog.
Yeah, true.
Led Zeppelin.
Yep. Right. Well,
I think the rumor goes that they told Jimmy Page that his guitar would be louder if he went DI, so he did that. I think I remember reading that somewhere.
A harmless little white lie, right? Hey, you want to be louder? Great, just plug straight in. Don't worry about your 1,000 decibel guitar. For the love of God.
Totally.
Well, man, it is. Let me solo up here the guitar. I'll solo up the guitars and bass so you guys can hear what this is sounding like, and we'll see what the channel strip is and how it's kind of affecting those. And so I remember, these ones you've also got some tape, some Studer and some Oxide on a couple of these. So let me play this back real quick over the chorus and let you guys listen to these in solo. I promised the chorus and I'll play the bridge. Here we go. Back to the chorus. Man, it's cool. It's crunchy. They have there's plenty of distortion and crunch and grit on there. These aren't going for the crazy clean.
No,
but that's the vibe.
They're fairly affected. Especially with most of those guitars and bass have a lot of chorus effect as well. And again, I think when you combine a chorus with a little bit of a crunchy overdrive or something, it has a particularly kind of peaky distorted thing that I dig. It just sounds it sounds like the guitars of that era. I feel like that's how they probably did a lot of that tracking back then.
Absolutely. And again, talking about bold choices here, when you get to the bridge synth bass plus 12 at 5K, no remorse. But it is such a cool sound because you're also combining that, I believe, here with the filters. So you've got a low pass filter at says around 10K, and then you've got a boost. Explain yourself, sir. How do these two things combine to create a tone that you like?
I think chorus in particular, I think that the upper mid-range frequencies, I think that's where it really start to hear it and it speaks. And I think for that chorus or for that bridge in particular, I wanted to just cut through a little bit more and be a little more unique from the rest of the tune. And I think I just went for it.
Yeah, I love it. Like that's the key here, guys. Like if you're picking up anything that we're putting down right now, it is that like these are fun. Like it's kind of fun to get in there and just shape the sound and not be not being overly critical of yourself as you're doing these things, and like kind of responding to your ear, just responding to like what you were feeling in the moment, right? You're like, oh yeah, like hard to tell which one you did first. Maybe you filtered it and you're like, actually I want a little something up there, but I don't want to undo that filter. Boom, now cranking up a bunch into that filter, and in the way they interact with each other. That's man, that's where so much of the magic of EQing and filtering and combining these different processes, that's where it really happens, is one thing into another, and how those two interact creates something totally unique.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly that. I think I might have been just getting some noise too up top, and that was a way to get rid of some of it. One of the unfortunate byproducts of using a lot of pedals is, the noise, the hiss starts to kind of add up,
Yep.
I mean, we love the pedals, but the noise, sometimes it becomes a bit much. So yeah, I think that was a means of trying to
get rid of some of that. Take some of that sizzle away.
Some of the white noise.
And so yeah, notice you've sparingly chosen on some tracks to use saturation, and some some of the tracks to not use saturation up in the tape slot. Obviously, coming into Luna kind of fresh here, how'd you find having this kind of built into some channels? Did you find yourself kind of coming to it after you were doing things, or at the beginning? Like, what was your approach to using some of the tape saturation?
I think I just knew. I think I came into it knowing like I wanted certain things to have a more of a vibe, and I wasn't sure what it was. And I think I was auditioning again, coming in, not having used it before, and just trying a lot of things out and seeing what was working. And those are the ones I kind of just tended to gravitate towards. Yeah, again, I'm a fan of a lot of doing a little bit across a lot of tracks, and with distortion in particular, I do that. And I think that was like, tape isn't really distortion per se, but I guess it kind of is. It has a similar thing. I enjoy it in a different way, but yeah, it just this is what worked for this song.
It's a lot of times, you don't have to think of the tape is not necessarily instant distortion, right? It's a lot of times it's actually more of a like a contour. Yeah, it's like a smoother. It does some transient stuff. It does some EQ things. And of course, if you guys aren't familiar at all, like with the Studer, let me zoom in a little better there. You can always pop open the Studer, and it literally has EQ, repro EQ controls. So for like lifting the top or lifting the bottom, being able to just kind of add a little bit of tone to it. And staying true to how the studio workflow would be. Your tracks in Luna, they're coming off the clips on the timeline, through the tape, into the API Vision, through the rest of your inserts, down to the mixer, off into the summing world. Like this is the thing that's gotten me so excited about working this way, is that this is like, it's literally like being in a recording studio now, signal flow wise, right? You're like, it's like getting to work on a tape machine into an API board through the master section with all the inserts that I could ever want at my available to me.
Yeah, we're living in the future, dude. It's insane. It's so awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, Carlos, this is there's so many things going on inside of here. Are there other aspects of this session that you think we should be highlighting for folks?
I think we've covered just about everything. Can you go to the edit window really quick? I just want to peep a couple of things. No, I think we got everything. I guess it's worth noting, just as a preemptive whatever, I did start this mix in the other DAW that we shall not mention, and then but I didn't get very far with it. But some of the stuff that I knew I wanted to commit to, I did commit. So you'll hear these tracks a little bit, some of them pre-processed. Just
Yeah.
disclaimer.
Totally. Well, but that's kind of the real world thing, and that's where I wanted to end up and is like kind of learning a bit about the songwriting and the production process and how that dovetails into the mixing process, because essentially even when you're in those early stages, especially for someone like you, you're kind of wearing multiple hats, right? You're trying to help a band create songs and produce them, and you're also recording and engineering them.
Right.
Do you have, how does this vision come together for you? Do you have like a very defined thing as soon as possible, or is it just kind of grow as you guys layer things on?
Yeah, I think it's a lot with these guys in particular. We do a number of rounds of like revisions of ideas, and it's really cool. It's a really open workflow where anybody, I mean, we literally will pass around a guitar or bass, or someone will come up with a keyboard idea. Nate's just a really great vocalist, so he's always like a fountain of like melodies and ideas that are really great. And generally, it's just kind of like help steering him and letting him do his thing. But yeah, like it is a lot of jumping back and forth. Like I said, like the drum loop on the song, we tracked, and then like I think we tracked other instrumentation, then we went back and retracked drums. We kind of do a lot of jumping around, and I think that's just kind of the workflow of a modern production. We have the ability to do this. Like I think some people are set in the ways of like the tape era or something, where it's like you have to track in this order, and then we do the overdubs, and then we mix. But now it's like, well, especially in my studio, the way I have it set up, like, no, we can go back and retrack the drums at any point, or anything, and so it just it gives us and you throw in like the endless things possible in the DAW, and it just creates a workflow that's kind of limitless, and sometimes that could be to a detriment. Like we certainly chased our tails a little bit in the studio here and there because we have too much choice.
Totally.
There's something to be said for having some limitations, but ultimately, the song speaks for itself. I'm super happy with how it came out, and I know the dudes are too. So yeah, can't be happy enough with how well this has all gone.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's yet again, man. I just gotta reiterate how cool this is that we were able to get this to you, able to get you into Luna, get you mixing with the API with a brand new thing that you've never gotten hands on with before, and then you absolutely crushed this mix, and then you and the band were kind enough to allow users to also get in here, and like that's. Just again, man, I can't thank you enough for me and from all of our users out there. Just like how cool of a opportunity this is to see how you work, to be able to get in here and try it out for themselves, and be able to experience working on a session at this level. Right, this is an incredible band, incredible production, and it's there's a lot to learn beyond just what we've geeked out about here today. Like there's a lot more to what's going on here than just the EQ and dynamics inside the API that really bring this to life. The effect choices, the arrangement choices. There's a million different ways that you guys can dissect what's going on inside the session and really kind of pull away of like, where it ultimately got to, the final mix, the final thing that we're listening to, and like that's getting everybody grooving and moving. That's a combination of like 1,000 different micro decisions that you guys have made along the way.
True.
And it's
so true. Yeah.
Man, it's such a cool thing that these days people can get in here and really learn and analyze and try to take bits and pieces that they're picking up from what you guys have done here and bring that into what they do.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah. And no way do I think I'm the shit or whatever, but yeah, I'm so happy to be able to impart anything I can to anyone to help them learn on their journey. I mean, like coming from a guy who learned in the dark ages pre-internet when none of this stuff was available, and you learn by word of mouth or like reading an article in the back of Mix magazine or something. The accessibility of the information today is just so next level, and I'm envious of anyone who's coming into it now and learning, because they have such a wealth of things to draw upon and inform their creative endeavors.
Oh,
So yeah, man. Thanks again, Ben, for having me on. This has been just super fun and awesome in every way.
dude, absolutely. I gotta the love in the chat right now is I know you and I we're hanging out together, but I've got my eye on the chat up here too, and like,
Oh, okay.
man, there's so much love for you right now, man.
Oh, rad.
For sharing the session, for sharing the knowledge like this. And yeah, I guess you mentioned how different it is nowadays compared to when you got started.
Yeah.
Any kind of tips or recommendations that you make to younger folks as they're if they say they want to do what you're doing, what's the best way to be putting yourself in a position where you can get bigger and better projects and kind of grow from being just a musician to doing all these things and getting to play with all these toys all day long?
I would say, I mean, start small, but also, I mean, I think the best thing for me, a few of the best things, the best opportunities that happened to me were, number one, when I got to, I was an assistant at Capitol Recording Studios in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to observe Al Schmidt and all the great house engineers there, Steve Genowick and all those guys who were just like so cool and so knowledgeable. And then also some of the people that I have had a working relationship with, Mark Trombino, JMJ, Tim Pagnotta, like guys that are kind of paving the way in different ways and help inform my aesthetic and technical knowledge and idea of how everyone has a little bit of a different approach to how records made. Joe Ciccarelli, and I've been able to pick and choose the things that I see that I think work well and kind of impart my own spin on it, and it all comes together somehow. So I think to any young person, I would say try to get your foot in the door with someone or somewhere where you can be in the room with records being made at a high level, and whether even if you're just I mean, I can't tell you how many food runs I did when I was at Capitol,
Right.
And we all got to start somewhere, and so that's what I would suggest, just start small and let the passion drive you. And I never lost the love for doing it. And I still feel like I have so much to learn with this whole thing. It's so endless, like there's so much to learn. I mean, especially with I feel like there's new things being dropped every day, hardware world, software world, even new instruments that are being created, so yeah, there's just so much to learn, and I don't think it'll ever stop. I think it's just a matter of continuing to challenge yourself, continuing to try to push forward, getting your foot in the door with a producer, or engineer, or a mixer, a studio, and just picking up and soaking up as much as you can.
Yeah, that's really great advice, and I fully concur. Like that's such a great. The opportunities are very wide and different these days than they were. And the opportunity to learn too is now much more spread out. Like there's so many great tutorials. There's live streams like this. There's so many opportunities for folks to come in and learn. But it requires you nailed it. It requires a want to learn. It requires
Right.
As a person, you got to be very interested and curious and always wanting to grow and learn more. And whether you like something or not, there's still something to learn there in every single opportunity, every session, I'm sure you've been in on sessions and records that you're like, dude, I don't like this. It's not my music. It's not my bag, right? But there's still something to learn. There's maybe something that you could be like, actually, that one thing he did, like, I'm gonna remember that. That might come in handy someday to like try out when I want that. I want to bring that little element into what I'm doing.
And I don't know, it's not unsimilar to how I got into music, I guess. Like, I never expected to make any money playing music, and eventually at some point I was, and then the focus then shifted. And I didn't think I was going to be, making money doing this either. I just wanted to do it, So I think the passion and the drive has to do it, whether or not you think you're going to make any money doing it,
Yeah.
So that's,
Dude, well,
It's a big
Carlos, man, I really, really, really appreciate you coming on, hanging out with us, dissecting the session, sharing the knowledge, sharing your passion for audio and music and all this stuff. If folks want to follow you and kind of learn more and see more about what you're doing, what's the best way for people to find you on the internet?
I really don't do. I mean, I'm just on Instagram. So Music Friend is the handle. Go check it. That's all I do, just Instagram, and I don't post as much as I should. So I will try. My New Year's resolution this year was to try to up my game on the internets, and then I've kind of failed miserably so far. But I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah, don't worry. There's gonna be a steady influx after today's show. I guarantee you.
I hope so.
But yeah, man, it's super fun. And as I mentioned, guys, today we're kind of looking at it from a mixing context. Like we thought, my feeling was that this would be a great way to kind of break the ice with the new extension. But we've kind of ignored the other half of the awesomeness that is in the API Vision console emulation, which is tracking and overdubbing through this whole workflow. So mark your calendars, put in for time off tomorrow, because we're going to be hanging out with Jakir King and the band Moon Taxi. They're getting set up today at Sound Emporium in Nashville, and we're going to do a full tracking session in Luna using the new API console extension. So it's going to be really interesting, and you guys will be able to compare and contrast like Carlos's approach to how he uses the API in the session, and then you're going to get to see Jakir's as well. And really kind of see two sides of the coin, mixing versus tracking and production. And of course, it's always fun hanging out with Jakir, and I walk away every time hanging out with him, learning something new and fun to try on sessions. So yeah, we're going to be back again tomorrow, same time. It will be noon Pacific. So definitely do not miss that show. And if you haven't already, grab go to uaudio.com. You can download the latest UAD. That gets you, that unlocks all of the new plugins, the Vision, the updated Vision channel strip, the new API preamp, and then of course update Luna. As soon as you open Luna, it's going to ask you to update. Do the updates. Grab the Luna session from that we were analyzing today. Get in there, play around with it, have some fun. And guys, yeah, I guess with that, we'll sign off for today, and I'll see you guys all back here tomorrow. Thanks so much, Carlos. Really appreciate having you on, man. Thanks, and look forward to talking again soon.
Sick, dude.
Awesome. Peace. Later, everybody.
See you guys.